Juliane and her mother arrived at the airport on time, filled with excitement as they took their seats on LANSA Flight 508. Juliane, seated by the window in row 19, felt safe with her mother beside her. Just a day before Christmas, the plane was full of passengers eager to reunite with loved ones. Little did they know, out of the 92 people on board, only Juliane would survive. Born in 1954 in Lima, Peru, Juliane Koepcke was the only child of German scientists Maria and Hans Wilhelm Koepcke. Both were researchers at the Lima Museum of Natural History. Juliane had a normal childhood and received a strong education thanks to her thoughtful parents. When she was around 14, her family moved from Lima to establish a research station called Panguana in the depths of the Amazon rainforest, where they conducted studies on wildlife. Juliane, however, continued her schooling in a German school in Lima, traveling back and forth between Lima and Panguana. During holidays, she would spend most of her time at the research station, where her parents taught her about the Amazon and its wildlife. In 1971, Juliane was 17 and about to graduate high school. When she and her mother boarded the plane on December 24th, they were returning to Panguana after her graduation. Her mother had wanted to return to Panguana on December 19th, but Juliane insisted on staying until the graduation ball on December 23rd. The next day, they booked their flight on LANSA Flight 508. This airline had a bad safety reputation, which was why Juliane's father, Hans, had warned them not to fly with it. However, because of the holiday season, all other flights were fully booked, and only LANSA Flight 508 had seats left. Once on board, everyone was in a festive mood, with people looking forward to Christmas. The crew served sandwiches, but as they flew, dark clouds filled the sky. It would later come out that the airline was aware of the dangerous weather conditions before takeoff, but, eager to sell all seats, did not delay the flight. About 30 minutes into the flight, the plane flew into a storm. Lightning flashed around them, and the plane shook violently, causing people to scream in panic. Juliane would later describe this as falling into the jaws of hell. At that moment, her mother whispered, "Now it's all over." These would be the last words Juliane heard from her mother. Suddenly, everything turned white. A lightning bolt had struck the plane, which burst into flames and began to break apart. In scenes reminiscent of a movie, the aircraft split up, and people were thrown into the sky. Juliane's seat detached from the plane, and she began a free fall from 3,000 meters, 10,000 feet. She lost consciousness as she fell, and when she woke, she was lying on the jungle floor. She had landed among dense trees, which had cushioned her fall. Covered in mud, her left eye swollen, her collarbone broken, and her body covered in cuts, she found herself alone in the vast rainforest. Juliane later recalled that, at that moment, she felt a deep sense of abandonment rather than fear. She wrote about the surreal beauty of the green jungle lit by golden light as she opened her eyes. Paralyzed by shock, she spent the rest of the day and night lying there, in pain from her injuries and unable to move. She was also without her glasses, which made her vision blurry, but she knew she had to act. Although she called out for her mother many times, all she heard was the distant sounds of jungle animals. Feeling around with her hands, she managed to find a bag of candy, likely someone's Christmas treat, which became her only food. Wearing a summer dress and one sandal, she started her journey, trying to follow the sounds around her. Moving in the wrong direction could mean deeper into the jungle, so she listened for water sounds and followed them. Along the way, she stumbled upon some seats from the plane, where she found a woman buried partly in mud. Noticing that her toenails were pointed, Juliane was relieved, knowing it wasn't her mother, who never wore nail polish. As the days passed, Juliane heard the distant sounds of rescue planes, but the thick jungle canopy prevented her from being seen. She continued onward, still in shock, surviving on the little candy she had and drinking water from the river. Over time, maggots began to infest her wounds. Following the river, she struggled through heavy rain and constant discomfort from the bugs and the cold, which made sleeping nearly impossible. Despite everything, she clung to the hope that her mother might still be alive. On the 6th day, Juliane noticed that the river was getting wider, and to avoid stepping on venomous snakes or spiders, she started wading through the water. Eventually, she let the current carry her downstream as her strength faded. Although exhausted, she kept going, remembering the survival skills her parents had taught her, but her energy was nearly gone. After 9 days of wandering, Juliane reached a hut with a palm leaf roof near the riverbank. Inside, she searched for food, but found none, only a can of gasoline. Recalling a trick her father had used to treat wounds on their dog, she poured the gasoline over her wound to force the maggots out. Afterward, she lay down, completely drained, and fell asleep. The next morning, Juliane awoke to the sound of voices. She ran out of the hut and saw Peruvian fishermen who were stunned to find her alive. She explained that she had survived a plane crash and needed help. They gave her basic first aid and took her by canoe to their village, where she was airlifted to a hospital. After 10 days in the jungle, Juliane had survived one of the world's most harrowing ordeals. Out of the 92 passengers on the flight, only Juliane survived. Official reports later revealed that 14 others had initially survived the crash, but had died while waiting for rescue. As the only living witness, Juliane helped search teams locate the crash site and recover the victims, including her mother, who had survived the crash, but succumbed to her injuries. Following her recovery, Juliane returned to Germany and eventually studied biology, just like her parents. By 1980, she graduated and later earned her doctorate. She eventually took over as director of Panguana, her family's research station, and continues to honor her parents' legacy in the Amazon. Over the years, her story has inspired books, films, and documentaries. But the question of why she alone survived continues to stay with her as she reflects on the miracle of her survival.